in this country.
Should social conservatives vote for you?
Absolutely, social conservatives should look very hard at the Libertarian ticket, the Libertarian Party message, and Bob Barr. And I think if they do that, they will find that despite, here again, there might be disagreements. I don't think there is or ever will be a perfect candidate out there for any particular group or maybe even for any individual. Social conservatives will see in Bob Barr a candidate that firmly believes in, and as president, would institute very dramatic changes to return power over people's lives, the education of their children, the running of their businesses, how they spend their money, how much of their money they have left to spend, back to the people. And that's very much the core of the social conservatives.
In a New York Times interview last month, you quoted a group of Republicans that you had met with in Washington, D.C., who said this to you: "We understand why you're doing this. We agree with why you're doing it, but please don't do it." What are you doing?
I'm daring to defy the two-party system, daring to run against the status quo, daring to open up the political system, and challenging the American people to put principle ahead of partisan politics. For too long, Americans have allowed themselves to be held captive by the two-party system and forcing themselves to go into the polling booth year after year, cycle after cycle, and essentially voting for the lesser of two evils, sort of holding their nose is the way many voters put it to me, holding our nose and voting for a Republican just because it's a Republican or a Democrat just because it's a Democrat. That cheapens the political system, it cheapens our heritage, and it undermines freedom in this country.
What impact, if any, are you hoping to have on the Republican Party?
My concern is not to have an impact on the Republican Party, although I think as a tangential benefit of my running, it may help move the Republican Party, which is sorely in need of leadership, vision, and agenda. It may move them, maybe imperceptibly, but a little bit back to where they really need to be if, for their sake, they want to recapture some of the power to affect change in this country that they had, for example, under Ronald Reagan or for the first couple of years of the Republican majority in the Congress.
If social conservatives should vote for you, then what about those traditional libertarians who are ambivalent on social issues or who don't want government involved on social issues? Why should they vote for you?
Well, libertarians certainly should vote for Bob Barr because there's no other candidate out there at all that even comes close to advocating, adopting, and committing himself or herself to work in support of the libertarian agenda and the libertarian platform. As the standard bearer for the Libertarian Party and as the titular head of the Libertarian Party, I certainly support our platform. No other candidate in any of the other parties does. And if, in fact, we are able, as I hope we will, to garner a lot of support from conservatives that feel disenfranchised by where the Republican Party has taken them and the candidate that it puts forward, we also believe and fully intend to reach an awful lot of blue-collar Democrats, for example, and for any libertarian to say, oh, we don't want those because they're not pure, is about as self-defeating a philosophy as one could have, and it makes no sense for a political party to take that view.
Let's talk about Ron Paul's presidential campaign. What impact did that have, do you think, on the libertarian movement?
Ron Paul's campaign as a Republican had a tremendous and very positive impact and influence, which it still is having on the libertarian movement and indeed on the Libertarian Party. Even though Ron Paul is running, did run, and I guess technically is still a candidate on the Republican side for the president as a Republican, he's well known both as a former member of the Libertarian Party, as its presidential nominee in 1988, for example, and is very much in accord with the Libertarian platform, has many, many friends and supporters in the Libertarian Party. What Ron Paul did by taking that background, that philosophy, and that commitment that is well known publicly as a libertarian-leaning Republican to the people of this country really highlighted and reminded people that there is a Libertarian Party out there, that it is a real party, that it can have an impact if we have the right message delivered in the right way with the right candidate, and that is something that we're building on. We have to go far beyond that but it does provide a nucleus of support and nucleus of public awareness that the party didn't have recently.
How important are Ron Paul voters to your bid to make it successful?
Ron Paul voters are very important because they are, by every measure, very committed, very involved, very highly educated, at least in terms of their awareness of American history, American politics, issues of government, and so forth. And they need to really lead the way. We intend and are already reaching them. We have several of the folks who worked in various capacities in Ron Paul's campaign that are already on board. We also have some, such as our campaign manager, Russell Verney, who managed Ross Perot's campaigns. So we're taking the best from the different movements out there, from Ross Perot's independent candidacy that did very well, from Ron Paul's campaign late last year and early this year that did very well, and we're bringing those in, and we're reaching out very expressly to Ron Paul supporters and reminding them that if they want to continue those things and moving forward on those issues and principles that attracted them to Ron Paul, they should certainly be supporting Bob Barr, now the Libertarian nominee.
Given where we are, this stage of the game, the election is this fall, realistically, do you think that you can reach the level of Ron Paul, pick up where he left off? He raised $6 million in one day on the internet.
Absolutely we can. Now, in terms of money, you never know on that. Most of the money, the lion's share of the money, for example, that Ron Paul raised, which was very, very impressive by any measure, was raised quite independently by outside groups and was triggered by outside events, such as some of the early debates, for example. So you never know where those opportunities are going to come from. You have to be ready to take advantage of them when they do occur. But we anticipate doing very well from a financial fundraising standpoint. And we also hope to do very, very well as some of the early polls. There was a Zogby poll earlier this week that showed us, I think, at about 8% nationally, even 10% in double digits in some states. I mean, this is very encouraging for this stage in our campaign.